Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. Our live studio audience today includes students experiencing the magic of music thanks to the Faith-2-Form Music Foundation. After Hurricane Harvey, as we know, thousands of people lost their homes and everything inside. Many students lost their journey with music because their instruments were ruined. That issue became viral after a social media post. A local student sat at his piano in the driveway one last time before it was hauled off to the trash dump. By the way, Barry Manilow came to town for a concert and made sure that student got a brand new piano. Our first guest continues to bridge the gap between students wanting to play an instrument and being able to afford one. Musician, songwriter, composer, producer, vocalist, anything you can do with music, Vel Lewis formed the Faith-2-Form Music Foundation to start kids off on the right note. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so you grew up in a house where music was just par for the course.
All the time, yeah, especially Sundays. That was jazz day.
Yeah, all right. Tell us how music figured into each one of your family members' lives.
Well, basically, I started it off. Mom told me I got to play an instrument. I said, oh, okay, if you say so.
But why did she tell you that?
Well, she used to be a tap dancer and an acrobat when she was young. And basically said that this is the way you should go. Yeah. So you need to pick up an instrument.
She realized the advantage of doing something
Absolutely,
like that.
Yeah. And it helped a lot with just academic courses that I was taking through school as well.
You flirted with the flute for a little bit, which is what I played in school, but you didn't really take to it, but you came across this thing called a Hammond organ.
Oh, yes, beautiful organ. And I've been playing it ever since. Gosh, I think probably since 12 years old. I think you just showed a shot of me, when I was playing for a school auditorium.
Yeah.
Was it?
There you are.
I forget what you call this thing.
Look at little Vel. All right, it's one thing to play. It's another thing to understand music through and through and be able to compose. You compose music for TV shows, Fresh Prince, Friends, and The Sopranos as well. And you also work with a lot of great musicians.
Oh, yes, and that's continuing as well. My good friend Dionne Warwick is now ambassador for F2F Music Foundation. And she and I have some big plans coming up for the end of the year.
Oh,
and I'll have to tell you more about that later.
I just want to say hi to her.
You will be.
Oh, thank you. So, guys, I love it. Do you know the way to San Jose? Oh, I grew up with all that kind of music in my house. All right, the Faith-2-Form Music Foundation, where did that spark, that idea come from for you?
I always say it came from our Father in heaven. Woke me up at 3:30 one morning and said, Faith-2-Form. I said, what's Faith-2-Form? What is this? Okay, let me sit up and
God, talk to me a little bit more.
Yeah, tell me more. And he said, okay, Faith-2-Form, academic courses for students. Faith-2-Form, bringing the music together. Faith-2-Form, new leaders for tomorrow. And to continue, I said, oh, okay, this is starting to make sense. And I just kept the idea going in my head all day long. I said, you know what, I think it's time to do something with music and bring it back to an educational standpoint. And I talked to another good friend of mine who happens to be a board member and a retired Houston ISD music therapist. And she said, yeah, let's put together a nonprofit organization because that's what I always wanted to do.
Yeah, and I love it, music therapist, which validates how important music can be. Yep. But I remember I saw James Galway on a PBS special playing the flute, and then a friend of mine up the street had a flute, and she let me touch it. I was like, oh. And so I went to my mom and dad and said, I really want to play the flute in band. And my mom was like, how much do these things cost? And she goes, well, we can't afford that. And they pulled the money together and afforded the flute. In fact, this is the very flute that I had in my hand when I first ever came to Houston, and it was to play the halftime in high school for the Houston Oilers football game. And so, yeah, this is it right here. But I cannot tell you what this thing right here did for me, being in a marching band, right? I didn't have time to get in trouble. I had to honor the rest of the team. When they say, hey, everybody, we need to be on the same page, you're on the same note. All right, Tyler, hi.
Hello.
So you play, let me guess, the trombone?
Yes.
All right. So for you, why did you decide to play an instrument?
I decided to play an instrument because I was kind of like inspired by this book called Trombone Shorty, because I just saw them playing the trombone. I was like, wow, that looks like a cool instrument to play.
Yeah, the hard part though is how do you get that instrument? So a lot of schools have programs where you can rent those instruments, right? Mm-hmm. So that was getting like kind of expensive for you all?
Yeah, the school actually offered to donate a trombone to me, but like for I could use at school and home.
Yeah, and so now having your own trombone, what does that mean?
It means a lot to me. Like, I feel very honored that I got my own trombone from the F2F Foundation.
What do you say to parents who are saying, okay, well, do we really want to get our kid an instrument? What does music do for you? Whether we ever play professionally or not, what does it do for you when you're in a band and you're working with other kids, like we have other kids, y'all hold up your instruments, with other kids here, that you're working with other people, like learning about teamwork and all those things that will last you, those lessons that will last you for the rest of your life?
What does it do for me?
Yeah.
It kind of just helps me, like, throughout of how to do stuff and how to push through whatever I need to do.
Yeah, and work with others. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it does form that thing of that base of teamwork. But as I mentioned, you know, a lot of kids are renting their instruments, and at the end of the day, they almost pay more for renting than they do for the actual instrument.
Exactly.
So that's why this is important for them to have ownership.
And I think you mentioned earlier about summertime. They have to return the instruments back to school. So then there's 3 months usually of time that they can't practice or do anything. And then when it comes back to school in August or September, whenever they start, they're limited on how much confidence that they've should have had, you know, by having.
And we
their
all
own
know you
instrument.
compete for first chair, second chair, all that type of stuff.
All
so the
that
kids who
happens
had their
quick.
instruments at home all summer could have, not that they did practice, but they could have practiced. And so you want to have a fair competition in that sense. And also just what it does for you, even when you're sitting in your room and you're playing. There are many times I would just go to my room and close the door and then play. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes I even just play in the dark, and what that did for me therapeutically.
Right, right. It's amazing. It's amazing. Music is very powerful.
All right. So how do you get these instruments, and how do you decide what kids get them?
Well, generally we go through instrument manufacturing companies that I've developed some relationships with, and then to get the instruments into the students' hands, I'll go out through the school districts and talk to band directors, orchestra directors, have them come to our website, fill out the form for recommendation of students that they know are struggling to try to maintain their own instrument. They send the form to us, our board reviews it, makes a decision on which students that we want to grant the award to. Yeah. And then we have award ceremonies periodically for these students to come
and you had
and
it not long
receive.
ago, and you gave me a call and
Yeah,
said, okay,
in
we handed
January.
out some instruments. It's opened some doors for you. You've gotten to do some big performances, right?
Mm-hmm. I one time just played on the Astros field, actually.
You went at the Astros?
Yeah, I played for the Astros.
Oh, wow. Helped. And it also does so many other things that, like I mentioned, that will last you for the rest of your life. Boost self-confidence, increase your motor skills, improve your listening skills, enhance your social skills, stimulate brain function. And we were talking about this earlier. I was in marching band, and you have to memorize a song, memorize where you're supposed to be on the field, how many counts it's supposed to be. You're doing all this stuff at the same time. Avoid the tubas, flute players, when they're coming toward you. Right? Because you're like, gotta move over. Don't know how it's gonna mess up the formation, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. To this day, when I walk, I silently count in 8s because I remember that from marching band. All right, tell us about the summer camp.
Summer camp is coming up on July 17th. It'll be a 2-week camp, Monday through Friday, and we'll close it out on the 28th with a finale concert. And we did this last year at the HCC Stafford campus. We're going to do it again with them. And I'm looking really forward to it. I got a call yesterday that we'll be able to offer scholarships. We're getting an award from the Fort Bend County people. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. We didn't have time to rehearse any kind of song, but can we all end on the note of C? Do you all know? Okay, here we go. Let me see if I remember it. All right. 1, 2, 3. Everybody.
Oh.
Yeah.
We're a band.
Concert C. Yeah.
Okay.
Clarinets.
Well, we're gonna.
Couldn't hear him back there, but okay.
Okay, one more time. Clarinet, everybody. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're gonna have to rehearse. But anyway, all right. For more information on the Faith-2-Form Foundation, their instrument fund, or their summer camp, visit greatdayhouston.com, and we will connect you.